Welcome to Women Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. We are your hosts. I'm Michelle Austin Pammies.
I'm Kathy Eggleston.
And I'm Bernadette Norris Weeks. Today our show is about the Black press and the media and the importance of the Black press to the Black community. Now, from the inception, the Black press has been a change agent by shining a light on the plight of Blacks and giving us the power to write our own narratives.
And in fact, that inception came in 1827. Reverend Samuel Cornish and John Russwurm started Freedom's Journal, the first Black newspaper in the United States. No longer were Black people held hostage to being left out of white-owned media. We had our own voice.
And for many years, in newsrooms across America, there's been a problem with a lack of diversity and inclusion. People of color are and continue to be underrepresented among news organizations at a time when our voices most need to be heard.
And indeed, our voices need to be heard right now. And that's really, ladies, why we started this program, Women Lead, because our voices were not heard when we started the show in the way that it needed to be. So basically, we can write our own shows, we can say what we want, we can basically have a focus on the Black community and brown communities and people of color, and tell our stories and highlight people that we need to highlight that may not otherwise get the recognition that's deserved.
Absolutely, the issues that matter to our community. But I will tell you what I hear all the time, since we no longer are left out by force of law, since there's civil rights, the question comes out all the time, well, why do we still need a Black press?
Well, there is an answer to that. We do need a Black press because when the mainstream media covers a particular issue, the Black press may cover it with a completely different angle. For example, the Black press rejected the mainstream media narrative that white working class support for Trump was primarily economic in nature, reporting instead on the presidential candidate's appeal being an appeal to white solidarity, raw racism, and scapegoating of minority groups. And we see that today as Mr. Trump has now been indicted, but he still benefits from support in that community of folks who love to hear his dog whistles.
Well, that's something to be said, Michelle, and I'll tell you that throughout history, if you go back to the Civil War, how the Black press, it was the Black newspapers that were highlighting the inequities of how Black soldiers were being treated in the Army and in the war. It was the Black press during Jim Crow that shined a light on the Klan when they were reigning terror in our neighborhoods and in our communities. It was the Black press that spoke up against lynchings. And so there's just so much that we can contribute to advancements that Black people have had based on the Black press.
Especially since these days, Black history is being quite limited in our schools.
Well, and speaking of women of color and the Black press, women of color have been involved since the very beginning. In the 1890s, it was journalist Ida B. Wells who ran series about lynchings of Black folks and changed the narrative for all of us. Well, we're excited. We have another pioneer and expert to talk about the Black press today. Publisher and CEO of the Westside Gazette newspaper, Broward's oldest and longest running Black paper, Mr. Bobby Henry will join us in a minute. After these messages, come right back.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com. Be sure to watch Women Lead every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on WSFL, the CW network. Welcome back to Women Lead. We have with us today the publisher and CEO of the Westside Gazette, Broward County's oldest and longest running paper. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bobby Henry.
Wow, it's such a pleasure to be here, and Kathy, Michelle, and Bernadette, it is an honor. As I was sitting off screen listening to y'all talk, I had my chest all puffed out, because it does something to you when you hear your story being told, at least the foundation you stand on. It gives you courage. So I am really, indeed, it's a pleasure for me to be here.
Well, we are happy to have you, Mr. Henry. We've been trying to get you on the show for a while. You are a hard man to get. He's all over you're a world traveler now that Bertha Henry, our former county administrator, is retired.
Oh, you brought a smile to my face.
So I would tell you that, we really are very interested in the Black newspaper, the history of the Black newspaper, and you have a very rich history, you and your family, and so you really run a family business.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Tell us about how it started and how you got involved.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my father, he was misquoted by the Sun Sentinel. My daddy was awarded Father of the Year, and they said something in the story that wasn't true. So my father went back to them to ask them to recant the story, and they wouldn't. And my daddy, being the country boy that he was, went out and started his own newspaper. And he started his newspaper in our family room. It was in February. My sister had received a typewriter for a Christmas present, and that was the first typewriter that my mother, she's now deceased, she was the editor, she typed out her first story on that typewriter. And the Westside Gazette was born in our home. My four sisters and I, we're the second generation of Black publishers in our family. And as we speak, we're working on our third generation. So yeah, it is a family business.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So with all the history you have with the oldest newspaper in Broward County, tell us, what aspects would you point out that were very significant that the Black press contributed to in this country?
Okay.
What are the key?
As it pertains to Broward County, my mother did a story on Cox, Mayor Cox. He was at an elementary school, and the question was asked, how do you become mayor? And he responded, you had to be 21 and white.
Ooh, wow.
It just so happened that the janitor there, Mr. McKeithen, one of your sorors, Sheila McKeithen's father was the janitor there, and he had a tape recorder that day, and he got it. And then, so my mother wrote about it, 60 Minutes picked it up, and the rest is history.
And he couldn't deny it.
Couldn't
it was
deny
on tape.
it. Couldn't deny it. So that was one of the things that hit home for us here. But across the country, Black newspapers has chronicled our history. I like to say, you can read through the history of Black folks in the pages of a Black newspaper. So whatever happened and transpired, it was right there. And it was from our perspective, from our narrative, not from some outside influence from somebody who does not really acknowledge or want to acknowledge that we even exist. So,
And certainly, the foundations of the Black press were formed in the 1800s and have told our story over time. And so, particularly for young people who we don't have the same barriers of law that our forefathers did, what do you say to them in terms of the Black press still being relevant for them?
okay, to all of my young folk, the hip hoppers, the TikTokers, social media group, if the social media shuts down, what do you have to tell your story? Where can you go to have your story told from your perspective, from your narrative? Even Chuck D. Okay, I'm gonna bring this all up to Chuck D. And Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is the president of the NNPA, which is our association. They have chronicled the hip hop to the black press. Now we're moving to the digital form. So young folk, if you want to get the true story about who you are and where you come from, you have to get it from the black press. You can't rely on trolls and other means to tell your story. And that's what is happening right now. So,
well, that's a good, you bring up a good point,
Sure.
because a lot of people are getting their information and news from social media now. They're not necessarily picking up papers, not just black people, but just people in general. So I'm wondering, how is the West Side Gazette competing with that new reality of where we are now?
if I had my cell phone right now, I could pull up, the NNPA has an app. So we're trying to cross platforms to have let me do this. If you do research, you have to go from one part to another part to another part to actually find the answers, and you put them all together. So what the NNPA is, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, of the over 214 black newspapers from across the country, we realize that some of our readers and readers who we're trying to gain are those who use quick access, like social media, like TikTok, Instagram. So we have and are creating our platforms to include digital as well as our home base, the black press. Being 196 years old, I don't know of any other entity in the black community that has survived that long. I don't even think funeral homes been around that long. I could be mistaken, but that's just me. So yeah, we're trying to, again, cross-pollinate, if you would, those things that have been beneficial to us in telling our stories, all right?
So you're basically working with a national organization to be able to compete with this.
Absolutely. There's a sister by the name of, I think it's Marianne Davis. This sister created our app, our being the NNPA. This sister does international technical stuff. She's a wizard. And so working from Dubai and where is the place where they're bombing, the war is happening now?
Ukraine?
Ukraine. She's done business with those countries. So her knowledge, her world knowledge and her influence has come to us. She saw a need and she's working with us to expand that need. Okay, we're not losing anything, we're gaining anything. We don't want to make the same mistake that those daily papers did when they immediately jumped from the print to the digital and almost lost everything they had. A lot of them are going out of business because they did that. So we're being very instrumental on how we do this. Google has approached us, and I know we were involved with Google Lab and trying to understand the analytics behind this digital stuff. It's more than just a notion. You just don't sit in front of a camera and produce something that's digital and say, here it is. It's much more to it than that. You have to understand just how far reaching you're going, what it takes to get to where you want to go. And all this stuff is technical, but
you all are keeping up.
we're keeping up.
Right.
We're keeping up. And I'm proud of our third generation. We have created a newsletter, as well as a podcast, if you will, a digital show. Yeah, so we're trying to keep up. And we're doing this because of the other influences from around the black newspapers. It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. Now, did I tell you all that the executive board of the NNPA is ran by women?
No.
All
No.
women?
Wow.
Yeah. So women don't allow you to just stay stagnant. You gotta,
You gotta keep
move.
up.
Yeah, you gotta keep
up.
up. Yeah. So we're doing that, and it's been prosperous, but there's also a downside to that. We have to understand and go back to black businesses, black people supporting black businesses. If black folks spend more money than any other nationality in this country, and if black people spent their hard-earned dollars with black businesses, we could do more than what we're doing now. It wouldn't be you come around and my child is going to college and they need books. We would gladly be able to do stuff like that if the monies that you spent with other people were spent with us. Did I get off task a little bit?
No,
no,
in
no,
fact, it kind of flows because right now my thought was to ask you what the future of the black press and black media looks like. And I guess a great component of that is being able to generate revenues.
Absolutely.
So what do you think the future looks like for the black press?
Fortunately, the future looks great. You know,
Kind of like the State of the Union is good.
Yeah.
we're good. Yeah, and I had an opportunity to meet the president before he was the president, and the question I asked him was, "What would your cabinet look like?" If you know, I mean, I use the cooking analogy. If you're a great cook, you use all kind of seasoning. So, what would your cabinet look like? And we can see the diversity, and the same thing applies with black businesses. We need to diversify to a point. We don't sell out, but those who have like ideas and like foundational principles, those are the ones that you gear yourself towards or bring them towards you. And fortunate enough, young folk have a tendency, because of the technical side, to draw people with the technical aspects to them. And it's not so much of a color, all right? A technicolor, if you will, but it's not so much of a color. So the foundation of the media, of the black press, gives them an opportunity to stand on, to draw that to them without selling out. Okay? Now there are a lot that do.
Let's talk about that for a second. So
Sure.
when you say selling out, what has, you know, I know that there's always the issue and challenge of trying to get sponsorships and people to sponsor what you're doing and get on board with supporting the paper. But what I'm wondering, have you ever been in a situation where you felt that you had to kind of water down what you were going to write about or say because maybe you won't get those sponsorship dollars? So let's be real.
I'm going to be real. I can honestly say that I have never cowed down to get $1. Now, I remember once, and this happened when the election with Trump. We had a full-page Trump ad in our papers, and one of our church members approached me in the parking lot and asked me, "How could you do this? How could you run a full-page ad for Trump?" And I said to him, "Do you see a full-page ad for Biden in there?" You know, so when it comes to certain things, money, green moves the pendulum, if you will. Now, I won't take any advertising that depicts us in a negative light. I would never sell out our newspaper, nor would I ever put an ad on the front page of our newspaper. That means I'm selling out. So I won't do that. So Bernadette, to answer your question, I can honestly say that we have never accepted any money that would buy us. My daddy wouldn't let us do that. He never did it.
So hopefully in that same paper where the Trump ad, you also tore him apart.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
no, it's the truth. It's the truth. So and the guy from Politico called me for an interview, you know, and I said, because the ads there, that doesn't mean that's the premise, that's the ideology that we stand behind. No, that's advertising dollars. Now, did you go ask another paper, why did they do this? You know, no. I
have to say, frankly, that with the black press, as with every other area in which black people function, a lot is asked of us. A lot is asked of us. So the idea that you can't sell an ad, it doesn't make any sense. You're in business. What is important, I think, would be your analysis of the current government and the analysis of the current candidate, etc.
You know, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you talk about advertising and advertising dollars, our businesses continue to be devalued. And a part of that might be that our market, our community doesn't understand the power and the numbers that we have. And this is your business. I know you know.
Sure.
So talk about that a little bit.
Okay. First of all, collectively, the black press, the NNPA, has more readers than the New York Times, the Washington Post. We have over 19 million readers on a weekly basis. That's from the print side. Now, when you throw in the analytics from the digital aspect, that's something totally different. What we have failed at is getting black folk to understand their value. We used to run, we're going to go back to doing that. We used to run an ad in our paper, full-page ad that says, "Speak daily with your dollars. Don't advertise with people who don't respect you." You know, and that's almost,
It's Sunday.
Yeah, that's almost 85% of the businesses that don't respect you, but they want your dollars. You know, the last I checked, I think the black spending power of black folk was at least the third largest country in the nation. That's a lot of money. If that money was spent with black folk, we wouldn't be walking around here offering for a handout. We would be able to do everything that was necessary for us to do it. Now I'm gonna say this, and Bernadette, you might get some calls on this. If our organizations, our national organizations, our NAACP, our Urban League, if the monies, and I won't call it hush money, I wouldn't dare say that, but if the monies that was spent, that they took from these different businesses, if they would say, hold up, we don't need all this, let's give some to black businesses or black-owned media, let's do that, then we could have something. But the moment you open your coffers up and you take everything for your dinners and for your whatever, and you don't share it, you are doing a disservice to the rest of your people. And we gotta.
No argument here.
The other thing that comes to mind is that when you have a black business, typically your customers are black people. There are very few others. You get an occasional here and there, but generally your customers are black people. So as a result, focusing on advertising in black media would make business sense.
News, good news, accurate news, everybody wants to be a part of it.
Makes sense.
You know, everybody. But for the black press, we don't get the dollars that are spent in advertising with those businesses that our money goes to.
What can we do really?
Tell the truth.
No, I agree. And I'm wondering, and I mean, just in terms of our show, I mean, I guess if we were beating down everybody, but we
Housewives.
We kind of say what we want to say here.
Yeah.
So people aren't beating down the door to sponsor the show. But let me just say, but I know we have over 500,000 viewers just about every show. So we're doing quite well. But I do want to ask you, what do you think can be done about that? So you have people who are, you know, voyeurs in a way. They'll look at the paper or they'll look at things like this show. But on the other hand, they won't put the dollars in it. They won't support it.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I guess we're both in the position where we've been able to sustain this in spite of that, right? But what can we do? Is there anything you think we can do more or do better?
Okay, maybe we need to coalesce, or we need to cross promote, or work together to really get the message out. You know, I do believe that messaging is extremely important. If your market area knows that we support you, you know, and you support us, then maybe they'll get a hint and say, you know, this is something that we need to do. Maybe if we're constantly telling the same story, you know, there's no fabricating, there's no lies, the numbers speak for themselves, and it becomes a constant. And maybe they'll begin to take notice to it. Especially, go ahead, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, Bobby.
No.
You know, I wanted to ask a question that's a little bit off of press, and
Sure.
I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask a question about leadership.
Okay.
You are not only the oldest black newspaper in Broward County and the publisher, you are a bona fide community leader. And
Thank
your daddy was a bona fide community leader. And when I came into this community, your dad took me by the hand and said, I'm going to teach you what's what, who's your friend, who's not, and all of those things. And now you are passing that along to a third generation. This is not accidental. What is your take on leadership and creating strong leaders for our community?
Yeah, Kathy, when you asked me that question, you know, I look at my father from the situations that he went through and how he would talk to us at the dinner table to tell us what was expected of us. You know, we used to always wonder, why does everybody come to you, knocking on the door at any time, at the office, at home? Why was that? And he said, Bobby, you know, y'all owe it to the community. Had it not been for the community, we wouldn't be where we are. So everything that you do, you know, aside from your belief in God and family, is the community. So you have to be able to relate to them You know, you have to understand what it means to be truthful, to have some integrity. You can't tell them that you're going to do something and you don't. And when they come to you for answers, you got to at least find the answers. And doggone it, you cannot be afraid to tell the truth, no matter what. You know, and we had people that we could actually emulate. You know, people like C.J. Jackson or Congressman Hastings or Reuben Simmons, who Mr. Simmons worked for the colored news. So we had people that were actually concerned that we can put our hands on and talk to. The teachers, you know, some of the police officers. So because of the fact that our daddy led, you know, we emulated him. Now, I might not have done it all the time, but when I became in a position where people would ask me things and rely on me, I had to do it.
And guess what? Your son is now looking up to you
Yes.
and emulating you.
Yes.
A third generation
Yes,
of the
yes.
West Side Gazette.
Now
right?
check this out. This is a women's led show. My niece, my daughter-in-law, my two nieces, right now they're in the leadership role. You know, my son is back there in case anything go wrong. But yeah, it's all about family, having that extended family, and being a part of that extended family, doing your part, knowing your role. If my role as a leader means that I have to address certain issues, then I'm going to address certain issues. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to tell you the truth. And then I'm going to ask you, did I lie? And if you can't tell me that I lied, then I must be telling the truth. And that's what we're standing on.
So congratulations on how many years?
52.
52 years. Amazing, right? Of the West Side Gazette newspaper. I mean, it is just phenomenal. And not many businesses can say they've been in business that long, right?
Yeah.
So tell our viewers, how do they reach you? How do they find out more about the West Side Gazette?
Okay, you can reach us through wgazette@thewestsidegazette.com. You can call the office at 954-525-1489, or you can reach me directly, and that's brhsr@thewestsidegazette.com. And I'll even give you my cell number.
Oh boy! Let me stop you right there. Well, I'm going to say it, Mr. Henry, but we will say that we've enjoyed having you on the
I
show.
have too.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, until the next time, be empowered.